Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Hunter, and I'm here with Will for the GK4FREE podcast. This GK4FREE podcast is your resource for the best free goalkeeping content on the internet. And I realize that's a bold statement, but hey, that's our goal, and that's what we're trying to get to. And I feel like we're on our way to doing that. So, what's going on, Will? How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing great. It's Thursday. It feels like Friday.
It does.
I'm working from home tomorrow. My wife's got some doctor's appointments, so I'm going to try to work from home, which means I probably won't get much work done. But got that Friday feeling driving home right now, so that's always cool.
For sure. Yeah, it's so nice. Yesterday was so crappy too. I mean,
yeah,
lovely outside.
I feel like it's fair, though, to give us a crappy day if you look at all the amazing days that we've had.
Yeah, weird, right? I know. It's felt like it hasn't rained enough. Yeah.
Very, very un-Pittsburgh.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, look at that shirt. Where'd you get that?
This is so it's a kid I went to high school with made this shirt, and it's based off of the Snapchat filter that I used to write in for North for Sales, because we don't have a Snapchat filter, or a geo filter technically is what it's called. And so I used to, every time I took a picture of North for Sales, I would write in red cursive just like this, right? And I was sitting in class a couple years ago at Pitt, and I looked on Snapchat, and he posted like this concept, and I was like, dude, no way you're making a shirt. And so then I actually modeled this shirt for him whenever he released it. Yeah, because I'm the mayor of North for Sales, and so yeah, this is like a limited edition release, and so yeah.
That's cool, man. I threw off my work shirt. I've actually got a Pittsburgh Pirates shirt on. So we're about the least soccer podcast hosts you're gonna see, at least today,
if they see it
in this form. But hey, it's important to be balanced in this life. If I know anything, I know that.
Yeah.
So look, the plan is to talk about 1v1s, and I sent you over the rundown.
Yeah.
The more I've been thinking about this, the more it's like, especially with how loaded the topic of phase 3, and we'll explain the phases in a second, but the idea of all the trends in goalkeeping right now, with spreading and blocking and all that kind of stuff, I think we can almost do a whole episode on phase 3.
Yeah.
So I think we'll make this one our first sort of 2-part. And today we'll try to hammer into phase 1 and phase 2, which are kind of simple, at least in theory. Try to give you a couple of helpful points that I think will be completely unique, maybe to what you're used to hearing about 1v1s, even though it's the same message, right? It's the same 3-phase approach that is more or less universal, because honestly, there's nothing else. There's nothing else that can happen. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to get into all that loaded stuff. It's funny because I was actually messaging back and forth on Instagram just before this, before I left the office, about this high up account that does goalkeeping, similar kind of idea to what we want to do, but they've been there, done that. They're very good. They're tons of followers, and I think majority of the content they put is just really, really good stuff. And I repost a bunch of their stuff too. But he kind of posted this thing about some blocking shape stuff, and I just sort of opened it up like, hey, what, I really want to know what you could want to think about this, because we've sort of vibed a little bit off of our sort of too much blocking, too much spreading, too much giving yourself up early these days, not enough hands to ball, 50-50 bravery, all that kind of stuff. So I was a little surprised to see this, but so we're just kind of going back and forth, and so I'm kind of glad we're not talking about that part of it today, because I don't, it fires me up so much, and not in a like confrontational way. It's just like I just think there's a lot of stuff out there coming from really places of voices of authority in the goalkeeping world that I just don't know if they're helpful. I think they're almost like the opposite of helpful for a lot of goalkeepers. So,
I think I know where you're going.
Yeah, but it was a very, very healthy dialogue, and I was trying to be super humble and
right.
because I just wanted his feedback on kind of what my 2 cents were, And so I'm eagerly waiting to see what he messaged back about that. So that's that. So we're gonna get right into it. I'll let you sort of put you on the spot and let you sort of tee up the 1v1s in general. What are the three phases, as simply as you can describe them, and then we'll get into the guts of phase 1 and phase 2. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, so the three phases of 1v1s, and so that having it in three phases, that's your thing, right? Like that's
No, that's not my thing. I think
No?
that's a universal, and you explain it, and then I'll explain why I think it's universal.
Sure. I mean calling it that, because I wouldn't know anything otherwise.
That's honestly the way honestly the way I'd never heard 1v1s presented any other way from the very first soccer camp I went to when I was 12. It was still that was the way that it was explained.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So phase 1 would be an instance where a ball is played through, and it has the potential to turn into, I don't want to say it without getting there yet, but potential to turn into a true 1v1, I guess. And as the goalkeeper,
well, you could even just say,
which would be
you just even do it in relationship between attacker, goalkeeper, and ball. Like that's what defines the three phases.
Sure. So the attacker's running onto the ball. The keeper has identified that it could be a 1v1 situation, but we're able to get there before them. So we go out, yell keeper, and we're able to get our hands onto the ball well before the attacker can get there. And that's kind of like an instance where we would be able to acquire 100% possession of the ball before the striker is able to get a touch.
Yeah. Great.
Phase 2 would be an instance where it becomes a 50-50 and requires the goalkeeper to get into a tackle with their hands. More often, all of it is about reading the cues, but phase 2 specifically, you're looking for kind of a big touch, and then that's your cue to then go and get your hands on the ball. And essentially, if you can get both hands on the ball and hold it, great. But if not, you're just trying to affect the play.
Yeah, love it. 50-50 or 40-60 or 60-40. That's a gray area in there. All those kind of work if you fully commit into that. And then obviously, finally, we've got
phase 3. So phase 3 would be an instance where an attacker is coming towards your goal, and they have the ball, and it's 100% possession. Like they've dribbled the ball, have kept it close, and now it's a 1v1. And so, again, phase 1 or 2 could stem from a phase 3.
Sure.
That could happen depending on the kind of touch the striker takes, or maybe they take too big of a touch and then you can get there very easily, whatever. But in a phase 3 situation, we can't go diving in at the feet because the striker has the ball very close. So then we have to stand it up and gradually close down the angle, make the goal smaller. And then, eventually you'll either get hit with the ball, make a reaction save, or maybe even get scored on, or make them miss.
Sure. Yeah. Hopefully not get scored on, but
hopefully not.
Yeah. So at the very, very, very most simple guts of it, Will's 100% right. He's right on with what I want to talk about, and he even mentioned some kind of key words in there that I'm glad he did, because again, I'm always kind of in my long drive home or late at night before I go to bed, I'm always thinking about these things and new ways to see them, and should we be challenging some of these concepts, and are we just doing it the same way because it's always been done that way? And so a couple of things that I'll circle back to that Will said there that are tried and true, the right way to do it, that I'm going to actually kind of try to spin on its head a little bit just to get you thinking differently and see if maybe that can help. So most simple way, phase 1, attacker has 100% of the ball. Phase 2, 50-50 moment between goalkeeper and attacker. Wait, I'm wrong. Phase 1, goalkeeper has 100% chance to get there first. Phase 2, 50-50 or in the neighborhood of 50-50 between goalkeeper and attacker. And then phase 3, attacker 100%, right? They've got possession. They received it. They're under control. And Will describe those beautifully. So to go into the details now of phase 1, Got my little notes sheet sitting in my very predictable traffic jam. Not gonna look down at my notes sheet just yet because I know it. But so I kind of wanted to come up with 3 sort of theme words for these, and I use these for the video content that I've sort of the teaser video content that I put out there from our session that we did last weekend with Anthony Mwembia from the Riverhounds Pro team, and then our 2 oldest academy boys keepers. And so these words that go along with it. So the big buzzword for theme word for phase 1 is going to be speed. Our theme word for phase 2 is going to be bravery. And then our theme word for phase 3 is going to be patience. And I think if you take nothing away from this podcast today, other than remembering those 3 words, speed, bravery, and patience, it'll go a long way with your approach to 1v1 play. Because honestly, 1v1s are something that we really overcomplicate, especially now with the way that, phase 3 is being approached. Phase 3 has almost become like 5 different phases in itself now, and I just think that's dumb. I think we can go back to making it much more simple again, and still allow you all out there that love your new blocking shapes ways and appropriate times to use them. Just not using those all the time. So we're going to hit pause for just a second while I prepare to go through this tunnel, and then we'll pop back on the other side. Okay, so Will and I had a little segue there talking about hats, but we're back. And so we're going to get into phase 1 specifically. So our theme word for phase 1 was speed. Okay, so in a phase 1 moment, it can develop in a couple different ways. I think the 2 most common ways that they happen are, 1, a through ball is played, or 2, an attacker takes a really big touch, gets out in front of them, or any kind of leading pass moment. We're not going to go into a ton of detail here because it doesn't make much sense for me to try to draw this out for you in a way that you can't see it. But the big kind of approach to phase 1, and what I want you to get thinking about with phase 1. So phase 1 means that we're able to beat the attacker clearly to the ball, right? The most important thing with this, which is also a foundational thing for phase 2 and phase 3, any 1v1 moment, if you want to have a high level of success with these, if you want to play at a high level, your ability to have a chance to make these plays has a lot more to do with your ability to read the situation, to be tactically aware, to have right. So it's a lot less about doing the right thing, whether it's phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3, and a lot more about preparing yourself for the 1v1 moment as you think that a 1v1 is going to happen. And, if you're 13, 14, 15 years old, you understand what I'm talking about, or older. If you're younger than that, maybe you don't. You're going to have to play a lot of soccer to start to be able to have a sort of when a through ball moment might happen, or when an attacker is about to beat the last defender and get around them. And your biggest advantage that you can give to yourself for any of these 1v1 moments is if you can go from what would be a normal shot stopping distance from your line for wherever that ball is. Let's say the ball's 20 yards, 22 yards from goal, 25 yards from goal. You've positioned yourself 2 or 3 yards, 4 yards from your line, right, where you'd expect to be if you're preparing for a shot. As soon as it changes from potential shot to this is probably going to be a through ball, that player's picking their head up and looking for a runner, or you see that runner coming from the other side or through the middle, or you see that this player is dribbling and trying to set your defender up to dive in so they get around him. You want to be successful, you have to start looking for that moment and then cheating to a higher starting point. So that means going from your conservative 2, 3, 4 yards where you'd be to save a shot, recognizing this is probably going to be a 1v1, and maybe getting to 5 or 6 yards. And maybe getting to 5 or 6 yards, not even in a way that has you balanced and set, but getting to 5 or 6 yards in a way that has you sort of loaded up on your front foot, leaning forward, anticipating getting through. Because what we say our theme word was for phase 1, Will?
Speed.
speed, right? So when that moment happens, that ball is played, we're only going to be successful in these phase one moments and keep them phase one where there is no contact, we're able to get there safely by once that ball's played, not hesitating, committing, and moving as fast as we're able to move. Doesn't mean you have to be a track athlete. It doesn't mean you have to be the fastest player on your team. But when you commit to leave your line in this moment, you have to go as fast as possible. Two other things that are important about this, and then I'll let Will kind of summarize. If you really want to do this at top speed, the ball early with phase one and phase two, you need to practice trying to get to the ball on as straight a line as possible in as few steps as possible. And this is typically one that's a little bit painful because it involves sprinting and diving and sliding, right? So if you're on a turf surface, a grass surface can be painful, but we still have to develop that ability. Do it in as few steps as possible. You have to develop an ability to go from dead stop to top speed as quickly as possible. You don't want to lose that speed as you get into your dive. So you have to find a way to continue moving at top speed as you leave your feet. And for diving technique, for going down our ride, the proper way to do it will be to take off our right foot last. These moments where it's all about, you're not going to have the ability to decide which foot's going to be the foot that you're going to have to take off or dive or slide off of. So you need to be able to, whether you're going down on your right side or you're going down on your left side, you need to be able to do that on your right foot and your left foot. And that sounds complicated, but honestly, this is something with a little bit of practice will happen very naturally as you get after it. Will, do you think anything else with 1v1s that could be helpful there? Phase one.
Phase
1v1
one.
that could be helpful there. Yeah.
So when
Anything else I left out?
when I think about phase one in particular, so it always takes me back to the bubble, the green tree. I think it was one of my first goalkeeper academies that I ever did as a player. And we were doing the drill with so it was just two cones side by side, and then there was whoever was serving was playing the ball, and the idea was to get to the ball before it crossed that line. And talk myself up here a little bit. I remember you guys chose me to demonstrate because we ran through it so many times, and I was just leaving my feet from like 5-6 yards away just to get to the ball before it crossed the line.
Right.
And so obviously that surface was brutal.
Worst.
Anyone that's ever trained there knows that. But I mean, it comes down to, does it hurt as bad as getting scored on? You gotta have to.
Or as bad as the potential contact with the player that might happen if you go slow.
Exactly. And so, obviously, like there's a way to get used to the feeling, but you just have to do it. And you got to take that straight line, and what I mean by that is like hands first, head behind your hands, and your feet should be last coming through that tackle. But I think we can get into that more in phase two. I think.
For sure. And look, I'm going to put out within the next week that we'll get tutorials out for phase one, phase two, phase three. And, this is not rocket scientist, but just like everything else, if you want to get good at this, you need to practice it. So you need to work on setting a ball down 10 or 15 yards away, starting, from an arbitrary starting point and sprinting and diving to that ball and getting there as quickly as possible. And a great little kind of game you can play with yourself is do the first one as fast as you can and count your steps as you go, right? And then do the next one and see if you can do it in one step fewer than that. And see as you continue to do that, how few steps it takes you to actually get to the ball. And I think as you kind of go through that sort of self-learning of that, you start to have these kind of really kind of crazy light bulb moments about how much ground you can actually cover. And that's something that's going to translate into phase two and phase three, the way that we're going to present it, which is in my mind, one of the biggest problems with goalkeeping right now is we're so afraid of contact and getting on top of the shooter and getting on top of the ball that we don't ever really move at top speed anymore. And when we present phase 3, we're going to present it in a way that actually encourages movement at close to top speed, but in a time that it's important, because in 1v1s, spoiler, right, proximity wins. Proximity, like the closer you can get yourself to the ball by the time that it's shot, the better chance you have to save. That's it. That's it. Like, and that's why I've had a lot of goalkeepers over the years that didn't do things necessarily the way that I see as the best way to play 1v1s. But if they were getting on top of the ball as it was getting struck, or getting the ball before it, or, you know, I have no problem with that, because that's all that's really important. We're going to give you a framework to be successful based on these 3 types of things that can happen. But honestly, you can do it however you want if you're getting to the point of contact. Unfortunately, just about everybody anymore is not brave enough to do that. A lot of that is not your fault. If you're hearing us say that and it's not a strength of yours, it's a real problem right now in goalkeeping. So segue right into phase 2. So phase 2, this is kind of the important one for me, 1v1 because if you can handle this, and if you can develop a level of comfort with this moment, you can be, the sky's the limit for you in terms of your level of success in 1v1 moves. Because what most don't realize is so many phase 3s could actually be a phase 2 if you really approach it with a level of tactical intelligence and bravery, right? But like we mentioned before, it's going to be all about speed that we can cover and get to the ball, right? The speed that we can cover ground, and can we get to the ball? So phase 2, again, like I said, tutorials are going to come, so we're not going to overcomplicate this with a ton of words. Basically, phase 2 means you and the shooter get there at the same time, or you get there just before the shooter, or he gets there just after you, right? It's a moment of contact where the foot strikes the ball as your hands strike the ball. So you're basically striking one another with the ball being in the middle, right? With the ball being the only thing separating you and the attacker's foot. And sometimes the ball gets out of the way and do strike one another, but if you do it in a way that we're going to present, even then you should be pretty safe. So the big problem with this is fear, okay? For anyone, for entry-level goalkeeper to professional, the problem is fear. So even for a professional, if they are not fine-tuning and working on this technique and I'll call it skill regularly throughout the course of their season, right, it'll be something that starts to become less and less of your game, right? They'll pull away more and try to stand up more in some of those moments instead of really being aggressive in those moments where they can get to the feet of the attacker. So basically the idea, like Will said before, there's a moment where it could be like a phase 1, right? It could still be a through ball that's ahead of the attacker, or it's getting past the attacker and they're catching up to it and they're going to shoot it first time, and we're getting out first time. And in that moment, the speed is so important, right? The speed and the commitment is so important. Or it could also be a moment where like a phase 3 that turns into a phase 2 where the attacker has the ball at their feet, they're dribbling, and then they prepare the ball and shoot it. And what I said there is going to be the most important thing when we talk about 1v1. That's going to be our phase 2 1v1. That's going to be probably a little bit different than even kind of what Will said earlier. And this might even be the first time Will's heard me say this, because that's the way a lot of this stuff goes sometimes. I'm always trying to change. I don't like it when I get stuck doing the same thing too much, the same for too long. So I'm going to talk about big touch, Will.
All right.
Can you beat me to the chase? Do you think you can crack the code and figure out what I'm going to say before I say it?
I don't know. I don't know if we're on the same wavelength here. But I feel like we might. I mean, once I hear you say it, I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. But
okay, all right, fine. Well,
yeah,
we'll get to it then.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the idea, right? So every coach ever, right, in these 50-50 moments, and we're talking about striking the ball with our hands. Okay, so the only thing different technique-wise versus in phase 1 versus phase 2, you're running and diving, sure, in as few steps as possible, sure, getting the ball as early as possible on the most direct line possible. Same as phase 1 and phase 2. Only thing different from a technique standpoint right? In phase 2, you have to make sure that you're protecting your hands. So you can't have them in a catching shape, which means your bottom, obviously bottom hand in a catching shape for a low dive, bottom hand on behind the ball, top hand on top, and your fingertips are kind of curled around the edges of the ball. We don't want to do that in this moment because we don't want to injure our hands. So we're actually going to be striking the ball with the hard part of your palm, right? That part that you all chew your gloves up with. So, you chew your gloves up there so much. You know what I'm talking about when I say that? And then almost down into your wrist strap of the glove, right? That's where you're going to strike both those at the same time on the ball with bent elbows. I don't know a good way to describe it. The same way that you would spike a volleyball, except while using both hands at the same time. If that makes sense. That's about the closest thing I can think of. And you're going to time that action, most likely because you're getting there at the same time as the shooter. You're going to try to time that same time the shooter's foot striking the ball. If you happen to be getting there before the shooter, you're probably still going to try to be as aggressive and strong there if you know the foot's going through. That's a little bit trickier, right, if you're kind of just there before them, but more or less you're going to play it the same way. Our head, this is a little bit crazy, but our head is actually, we're going to try to keep our head as close as we can, tucked in behind our elbows as we strike that ball. So actually the distance between the ball and our face is pretty close. If the distance between the ball and your face and your hands is far away because your arms are really straight, there's a lot more chance there that you get hit in the face with the ball or you get kicked in the face or whatever. So again, any of these 1v1 moments where we're going to ground, leading with our hands, we want our head to be right behind our elbows. It's really close, right? Really close. That's where we're really safe. And that's where we keep from getting contact in the face. So back to what I was trying to trick Will with. So we decide to go when there's this moment, right? The ball gets away from the attacker, the pass is a little bit long, or the ball gets away from the attacker. What I was trying to set Will up for was, I've always taught the attacker takes a big touch. I think the problem with that, especially with now everybody wanting to play everything like a phase 3, is nothing looks big enough to signal the goalkeeper that they should go and make this challenge. So I'm going to spin that around its head and I'm going to say, no, we're not going to call it a big touch anymore, right? So for the kind of the way that we're going to change the way we think about this, we have to think of one other thing that I've already talked about, and that's proximity, right? We have to make sure that we've been able to close down and get pretty close, right, to the attacker first. Because this is not going to work. Phase 2 is not going to work. You're not going to be able to get in. If an attacker's dribbling the ball, you're not going to likely be able to get to that ball if they're 10 yards away from you. It's probably going to have to be within 6 yards or closer as they go from dribble to prep, touch, to shoot. But so instead of looking for big touch, I want us now to look for, okay, we're close. We've done our good job. We've closed down because one, we were smart. We read that it was going to be a through ball or a 1v1. We cheated out high, right? And then that moment happened, we started to move forward. So we've got proximity. We're within 8, 7, 6, 5 yards, whatever. You'll know as these moments happen. If you're that close to the ball, 8 yards is pretty far. And that attacker goes from dribble to prepare to shoot. That's your signal to go. So we're changing the signal from big touch to prep touch. And I would need to be on the field to be able to demonstrate this for you. But imagine, a striker dribbling at goal with no defenders around. They're probably going to be taking touches with their laces so they can run top speed. So touch, touch, touch. When they prepare to shoot, it's most likely going to be off to a little bit of an angle. Right? If they're shooting with their right, off to the right slightly. If they're shooting with the left, off their left slightly. Right? And it's going to be a little bit bigger, yes. Right? The reason that that's our moment to go is not because of the bigger touch. It's not because of the space. It's because of the time and the window that is presented for us to now get to the ball. Because I'm dribbling, take one step, one touch, one step, one touch, one step, one touch, or more, right? But that's the fastest I can do it. No player in the world, unless they're going to toe poke it at you in stride, can take the prep touch with the same foot and then shoot without 2 steps, right? They touch it with the right foot comes back down on the ground, they go to plant with the left foot, and they shoot. So it's touch, step, shot, right? So in the time it takes them to go shot, you can take step, dive, right? And that see how much ground you can cover in the time that it takes that shooter to go step, shoot. I want to see if they're preparing with their right foot. That means you'd be diving on your left side. That means you're probably stepping with the right foot, left foot, vaulting, struggle on their foot. And you would be very surprised, even as a 12 or 13-year-old goalkeeper, if you take a very direct line, I would say that you can probably cover 4 to 6 yards with that step, direct line dive to the ball. And here's the cool thing too, is that shooter, they can only probably cover half that distance, right? Because they have to stay in a line like this, right? Straight up and down where they're over top of the ball, and you can go diving straight at the ball. Mm-hmm. So that's the big difference, right? So we're no longer looking for a big touch. We're looking for a prep touch. And if we've done a good job of closing down and establishing close proximity, prep touch, that's the signal to go. And we're going to give you a great drill. I call these moments tackles. If you know me in my world, I call this 2-hand challenge to the ball. I call this a tackle. And in that world, in my world of goalkeeping, in a 50-50 moment, there's no scenario where you use your legs or your feet. I don't think that's safe. I think if this moment happens where the shooter's shooting at the same time and you're close enough, you have to use your hands. My last point about that, in any 1v1, the only way in a 1v1 moment where the attacker's trying to shoot and score on you, the only way that you can guarantee they do not score and the ball does not go in the goal in that moment is if you put your hands on it. You could make an argument that you could do it with your feet, but I've seen way too many times where that same thing happens when a goalkeeper makes a challenge with their foot and it hits their foot and still ends up in the goal. Phase 2, go in your hands. I cannot stress the importance of your establishing this ability to do this ability to be brave in this moment. And again, we're going to show you, it's my favorite drill. I started doing it during the end of my pro career as the last thing I would do in my warm-up to kind of set my mentality, get me ready to make these big plays, these big, quote unquote, dangerous plays, which actually aren't dangerous if you do it the right way. It's a lot safer than leading with your feet or spreading. And then I got into coaching at the pro level. This became a staple in our week leading up to the game, towards the end of the week. Just a few of these just to get your mentality right. And then as part of the warm-up, every single pro goalkeeper that I worked with loved using this as part of their warm-up. Just a couple, right? 2 or 3 balls like this to feel. And I'm going to give you that drill later. Well, this will probably be this week, so you'll see that in the next couple of days. Will, bring us sort of full circle on, was that close? Were you thinking that?
Yeah.
Is that what you were thinking?
I mean, I wasn't, no, like I wasn't really thinking anything. But when you said it, I mean, it was exactly, because I mean, that's definitely true with, I mean, just thinking about, like you said, I mean, a touch never looks big enough. And then it's just that one that's like way too big. That's when they're going to decide to go.
Yeah.
Versus anything that's within, I don't know.
And that one, there's no contact anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So it turns into a phase 1. And so like the 1 and 3 are the ones that were kind of, and I mean, I even thinking back my way up as like a kid, phase 2 was a thing years ago when I first started playing in the net. Like I did that a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe I didn't do it the same way.
I still think it's a thing. I still think most coaches are coaching it.
Yeah.
I just think that the phase 3 is bleeding so hard into phase 2 that most goalkeepers, when they're thrown into that moment and have to decide what to do, are just going to default to phase 3.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I mean, I remember getting into tackles a lot as like at age, I don't know, 13 through say 15. And then, for me, it was Joe Hart came into popularity, and
Yeah,
then it
of
was
course.
the
Yeah.
spread, the block, the side volley, all at one time. Those were the things to do. And so then
Yeah.
it was like 1 and
Here we
3
are.
kind of became more common, and then phase 2 almost disappeared, at least for me when I was playing. And
Yeah.
then, time goes by, and then we come back around, and I'm like 22 at Pitt with Bohonic, and we're back to getting into tackles, and it's like higher starting spot. We're playing 5-6 yards off the line in small sided double 18 games and taking
Yeah.
out every single through ball because we've got just such a jump on the play. And so I mean it's just so effective when you do it right. I mean, you can avoid all of those phase 3 instances of where the striker does get a shot off, and like you said, the only way to prevent any shot on goal is to get your hands to the ball, and which would be a phase 2 tackle.
Right. Yeah, that's an excellent summary of kind of where we just went with this. And listen, we're like I said, this is the third time I say it. We're gonna give you videos. We're gonna give you the tools. We're gonna be very specific, because I can't show you how to do that in my car, and I don't think Will can right now in his garage either. So yeah, so I think that's pretty good. So again, remember our theme for phase 1: speed. Phase 2: bravery. Speed is still just as much a big part of phase 2, right? You need speed and bravery for phase 2. Underlying theme for all of this is decisiveness, like being able to make a decision and follow through with it and commit to it. Hesitation kills, right? Hesitation is the enemy, right, in these moments. I think, obviously, you're going to screw up. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to hesitate as a youth goalkeeper. You have to make all those mistakes to develop a comfort level with this. But even more importantly, the earlier you can get used to reading that a 1v1 is going to develop and you can get to a higher starting point, this is the same thing I talk about with crosses. Your decision whether to go or whether to close to your line. Everything is hard when you're very close to your line. And look, if there's still a chance that they can get a shot off because your defender's not on top of them, you can't cheat high, right? You can't. So there are some there's always a counter example for everything that we're saying. But most of the time, a through ball's being played or players dribbling around a defender in moments where the defender was on top of the ball, right? Or closing, right? And that gives you the chance to cheat to a higher spot because there is pressure on that player with the ball that is either going to dribble around or that is going to be playing the through ball to the player running. Not a lot. You got anything else?
I want to say, to your point on hesitation. So
yeah,
and this is probably an easier thing to show than to say, but in phase 2, even if you feel like you're not going to be able to get there at the same time or before the attacker makes contact, you're still better off getting your hands
100%.
as close to the ball as possible, because
100%.
What happens is, I mean, I've seen this in training. I saw this in training last night is, they initially commit to that phase 2 tackle to get their hands to ball, and then they realize that they're not going to get there in time. So then they bail backwards, and then they kind of end up laying sideways. And when that happens, like, number one, the goal's pretty big. I mean, the ball can go over you pretty easily, but then you can also get hit with the ball in places where you really don't want to hit, and you can get kicked. Years ago, I did this where I went out for a tackle and I knew I was late and I bailed backwards and didn't go straight up and down. And the attacker just swung at the ball and didn't even look and got all of me, none of the ball. And so, again, I mean, if you can't get right up to the ball, even a yard away from it is you still have a pretty good chance to make contact with it after they shoot.
Yeah. And so I think Dan Lynn, the year that he was our pro team goalkeeper, obviously you played with Dan at Pitt.
Yeah.
I coached Dan when he was in college, and on the Riverhounds pro team, there were 2 or 3 amazing 1v1 saves that Dan made that year that I don't think very many other pro team goalkeepers would have committed to with their hands. Mm-hmm. And all of those were instances where the attacker was shooting first time the ball, and well before Dan. But the fact that he committed with such speed and such aggression on such a direct line to the ball. As the ball's hit, it travels a little bit, but then his hands are there, boom.
Yeah.
And he makes a play. And in two of those situations, the ball would have probably kind of spun up and around and then ended up back behind him and maybe in the goal. But because he acted so quickly and so aggressively, the defenders were able to clean that up. You know what I mean? And had he just stayed there and stood up, who knows? Maybe he makes a standing up save, or maybe he doesn't. But he only made those plays, which I would call game savers, right?
Yeah.
Because he committed, and I think a lot of that's because we did these so regularly, and it was such a part of our, and it just builds the comfort level, it builds the confidence level, and you do these in training, and these moments, you see these moments more often. You see these moments where you can go and win the ball. And honestly, even at the pro level, you get in this situation, you call keeper, and you commit so hard. Most of the time, a lot of the time, the attacker will bail before there even is that moment of contact.
Yeah. And this seems like one of those things with goalkeeping that, like, this element and then maybe crosses, like, it seems to atrophy, you know? Like, I mean, for me, like, having not training frequently, like, I still feel like I can go out and do shot stopping and dive around and stuff. But when it comes to this stuff, I think it would take some time to get back in. I mean, like, if you're not doing it for a while, it's not going to happen right away.
Yeah. And again, I think, at the pro level, in the college level, you have the luxury of like a weekly training cycle, you know what I mean? And a lead up to a game, right? Where beginning of the week starts harder, and then end of the week starts to taper, and you work on distribution and crosses. I always included a small piece of this at the end of the week, which is a little bit different to that model of slow it down, and you know what I mean? Because I wanted that level of sharpness and that level of sort of controlled, prepared for controlled aggression in that moment where these guys are ready to make those plays. And it was so cool, that especially that year, because Dan Lynn played, Mike Kirk played, Kyle Morton played, all those guys played. All of them had moments where they made these plays. And again, it's not necessarily because of what I was teaching them to do, but I think it was very much a product of them doing it regularly.
Yeah, it would make for an interesting case study, looking at just that in training consistently versus not doing it otherwise. And because, I mean, there weren't, like, didn't we just talk about that season? There weren't a lot of goals conceded that season.
Since Bob's been there, there haven't been a lot of goals conceded. So it's part of his process.
Right.
Okay, well, I think that's pretty. I think we pretty much hammered down phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 3, again, that's going to be standing up when the attacker has possession, right? And the theme word for that is going to be patience, and I think that's going to be a tricky one, because a lot of these blocking shapes, we committed into a shape, right, without the patience part, and then we concede the ball in places where it probably would have been easy to save had we been able to stay in a way that gives our body more control to make saves. So that's going to be kind of the big talking point. I think we'll be able to go full podcast on that. What should we do now? I got pulled in my driveway, so I'm gonna get in trouble if I stay here too much longer. Plug the socials. You got anything? You got anything else coming up? An exciting Marshall Fitness? I'm about to finish my
Oh, look at that.
My Marshall Fitness. I'm week 7, right?
Oh yeah.
Program,
So you're right at the end. No, I have nothing coming up. I mean, I'm doing another program. It was the same people that wrote Squatober. This program's called it's called Benjamin Franklin, and so it's bench 4 days out of the week. And I mean, I had so much fun with Squatober, so I was like, I'll do another one. And I mean, after Squatober it was like PR city for me. 355 back squat, 300 front squat, 225 bench, like all stuff that I've been looking to hit for a long time. So I mean, I'm just sticking with the theme of getting strong and just eating as much as I can for the next, until it gets warm again. So still writing the goalkeeper speed and strength program.
Pound club?
What's that?
1,000-pound club yet? 1,000-pound club yet?
That
was a high school football thing at my high school.
I'm super close. I'm at
squat, bench, deadlift,
755. I'm at 980.
Not yet. Not quite.
Yeah, I'm right there.
Goals.
Yeah, I'll get there. After this month, I bet I'll get there. add 20 pounds to the bench.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
All right, man. All right, well, go ahead and Marshall Fitness, everybody. Hashtag Marshall Fitness. Will, go ahead and plug your socials.
Yeah, the website is marshallfitness.shop, and then my Instagram is @willmarshall_1. And then you can find me at Facebook. I've been using Facebook a lot more now. It's just Will Marshall, I think, and you'll probably figure out that it's me. But yeah.
Then YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, my YouTube. I've been posting exercise videos on there. Yeah, that's under Will Marshall also.
And that's coming, right? Goalkeeper specific speed and strength.
Yeah. I just laid down I have like a third of it done. It's gonna be pretty thick, I think. It's gonna have like a lot of progressions. So I mean, the idea is that if you have it and you're starting at the beginning, I mean, you'll pretty much be able to use it because there's gonna be 2 more progressions following that just get more and more advanced. So hopefully, once I get it all together, it kind of flows pretty nice.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, big, huge announcement for GK4FREE podcast and our GK4FREE media project world. I don't know. We got to come up with a name for all the video stuff.
Multimedia.
That's coming next week. The plan is for Tuesday. Big announcement. So stay tuned.
That's my birthday.
I got to make sure I get this out. Woo! Even better. Got to make sure I get this out by then. So my socials, you can find all of our GK4FREE content on my Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. The Facebook, I'm Hunter Gilstrap. You can just find my page there. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, at Hunt Gilstrap, HUNTGILSTRAP. YouTube channel is Hunter Gilstrap Goalkeeping. We're also on LinkedIn. Podcast, obviously, you can find this podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's the GK4FREE podcast. And we thank you guys for hanging out with us today. We'll see you soon.
All right, everyone.